we are going to our feature match area where, our undefeated team, we have May French's team back at it again. We're going to check on Bill Caminos this round, who we did not see last playing the Grinding Breach deck. Looks to be taking a mulligan.
And they're going to be going up against Eldrazi Ramp here, going up against Adam Saba. How does this normally pan out? I feel like if we can get an early Karn down, we might be pretty favored. If not, it might be a bit of a hard day at the office.
Yeah, that is sort of exactly how this went before the addition of Karn, right? Like this deck lost the One Ring. Players tried some stuff. Basically, landed on Karn needs to be it because one, it gives you, a lot of ability to answer some problems you normally couldn't with a deck like this. But the biggest thing being that Stony silence effect from Karn being massive in combination with the ability to immediately grab something like a Tormod script. And this is a big thing in this sort of matchup is the first hate piece is very beatable for Breach. The second one's kind of an issue. The third one typically is the one that does them in. Karn's 2 immediately. Have the Stony Silence effect, you get a Tormod script, pass the turn, put your opponent in a very awkward position.
All right, well, we're going to start with the powerful land from MH3. Ugin's Labyrinth is going to come down. That's going to use a 7-mana spell in the form of Worldbreaker to produce 2 extra mana. And then that's going to let us get a Talisman down. So pretty good, ideal start for the Eldrazi Ramp deck, doing what it wants to do, and that is Ramp. Over on the other side, as the Saga is going to come down, we're going to cast a Rumble, and we get a little look at a Bauble. We got the Thassa's Oracle in there as well, and the Tamiyo. Now, Thassa's Oracle being one of these cards, how important is that? Do we have to take it? Because potentially, if a Karn was to come down and exile it with a Crypt, does that mean that our win con has gone out the deck?
Yeah, look, I mean, some players use different things to win. This deck theoretically has a Lightning Bolt, so we could Breach and Bolt a lot. That is not an easy way to win, especially if there was a Karn coming down. So yeah, you're seeing Bill here be like, hey, I could get this Tamiyo. It's kind of fine. I should get this Bauble. It's kind of fine. But this Oracle, I only really want on the turn I'm winning, but I can't afford to lose it like you brought up there, Will, in game number 1. Post-board, typically you're going to see Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. That's going to put you in a position where you're going to be able to fight through maybe something like that, but not here for Bill.
It comes to Eldrazi Temple, and we did pick up Karn for the turn. Might be the play for the turn. Looks like we're kind of silent. Nope, we are going to play the powerful Planeswalker. It's going to come down with 5 loyalty. Pretty much going to just there's nothing to tick it up on, really.
Yeah, so nothing to pick.
Go on.
I was going to say, sometimes you tick up just to kind of like get it out of creature range, even if you have no targets here. But on this empty-ish board, this is sort of the worst case scenario for Bill, especially on turn number 2.
So what we're taking it down. What sort of silver bullets are we going to find? Do you like a Chalice on 0? Do you like a Torment's Crypt, or do you want to try and set up for maybe start Stone Raining or the Brainstone effect?
I like the Tormod script here on 0 because, like I said at the beginning of this match, it creates a double whammy for trying to combo. And then next turn, we can go get something like the Stone Brain and just name Underworld Breach. And Bill will basically have an incredibly hard time to get out from underneath that. And you're going to see now there's a lot of pressure on Bill to win this turn. This is why these decks added Karn. I mean, imagine if we were doing this and playing a Sowing Myco Spawn, right? Like that was our only real 4. Bill could maybe even win this turn, right? So a huge difference in sort of how the games play with and without Karn. And that addition has changed things a lot. And you're seeing, Bill just has to pass the turn, knows that we might just need to be playing Urza Saga Value Town to win this game because the Stone Brain is very likely to come down and very likely to name Underworld Breach.
Well, that playing to our advantage because we do have 3 Urza Sagas, 2 in play, 1 in the hand. So maybe it is just going to be a construct battle and try and go above and bigger than this Eldrazi Ramp deck, which is a task because it does have some big creatures in it. Things like Worldbreaker, Null Drifter, and of course, Emrakul, the Promised End, is floating around in these decks. Really easy to start turning on with the addition of green now and casting Rumbles, getting extra cards in our graveyard, different types. And one way we can also just ramp to it and cast it the old-fashioned way is with this card here that we see, Sowing Myco Spawn, coming down right now.
Yeah, this card's a beating. So we've actually been able to kick it, which means Adam here will be able to blow up one of Bill's lands. So there's 2 ways to go about this. You could blow up that land, which immediately stops the pop. You could also have gone after the first saga and getting the second saga, the one on chapter 1. That would give 1 activation, and then the other saga will pop. It has to maybe lose the Scion to make another token, but you're seeing Adam here prioritize not letting Bill search and maybe set up something there for later turns here. And we still get a land from our deck.
Makes sense. And what sort of like, do we have any utility lands in here? Sometimes we see Paducah Bog. Yep, there is a Paducah Bog in here. There's one Cavern of Souls. Or are we just going to keep trying to advance our mana state? Do you think we want to go for temples or even a Sanctum of Ugin we've seen kind of cropping up a little bit more now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things. We've even seen with some players use Ghost Quarter in their deck, and that would be something that'd be very strong here against this Urza Saga, for example. But it looks like we did go for the Bajuka Bog just to add another layer of protection, maybe stop some value breaching here. If Adam is doing this, obviously we're not going for any sort of grinding station type names or anything along those lines when it comes to a Stone Brain activation. We might even see just a Karn value wish here for some big card that can maybe take over the game. We'll have to see exactly how it goes. Cityscape Leveler has been one of the default ones.
Yeah.
Walking Blist in the past is a totally reasonable card. Haywire Mite's totally fine. Stone Brand, I do think, is the best name.
Right, question. What is the card you name Stonebrain though? Because obviously there's multiple different ways that this deck can win. If you take out, say, Grinding Station, there's other ways for them to win. What is the namesake card you usually or you personally name with Stonebrain?
I think Underworld Breach is typically the best name, all things being equal, because if you do that, it makes the Oracle not really a thing, right? You can deck yourself, and I've definitely done it. You know what I mean? There are games where I've like Emeryed and rumbled and just stationed myself enough that I won after losing Underworld Breach, but it's hard, especially, in the current game state where Adam has these big Eldrazi to win the game with. You can name Station. That makes it really hard to once again go through your deck, but like I just said, you can just, mill yourself naturally. And you could name Oracle, but with a deck like Bills, we actually have Lightning Bolt, and you can still just value breach. And I think players underrate just how much value breaching can sometimes get you enough sort of incidental advantages, even with the graveyard sort of currently answered. So Bill knows that, most likely we're not going to be able to combo win this game. So it needs to set up now for sort of the long game.
So we're playing the Mox out now. Obviously, we can't use it in the face of this Karn. Doing it just to get the +1/+1 counter or the +1 effect on the construct, which means it will be able to trade with that Soul Micro Spawn. It does use up our whole turn though, because we've got to use this Urza Saga to make another construct as we pass the turn back. That's a lot of open mana. I don't even want to count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like potentially like 8 mana for Eldrazi this turn.
Yeah, I think we picked up a Temple as well.
Yeesh.
So it is a lot of mana. And I think this is going to be like a spot where against a deck that didn't have these big creatures, Adam would might still lose to Bill, right? Like we might just get grinded out via sagas, but we have a world breaker underneath, the Ugins Labyrinth. We can kill the Mox Amber with the Karn, which is basically all it can do because it can't go down anymore, right? That weakens the constructs, makes them a little worse. We Stonebrain out the breaches, and then eventually we just pick up World Breaker, cast it, and it's bigger than all of these constructs by a lot. And that's all assuming we, somehow would need to win the next turn, as we can play Emrakul the Promised End, Alf the Sanctum of Ugin in play. But it looks like we're actually just going to pick up World Breaker now.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're doing what we're doing. We've got 3 Eldrazi Temples. We've got the green mana from the Talisman as well, so we can cast it. That's also a way of turning off the Saga on the other side. So again, we're going to stop Bill from being able to search and find any way of setting up for a future turn to, win this game and almost steal it from under us. Because I feel that everyone on Adam's side is definitely in the control seat here. I'd be feeling really good if I was over on there, and we get to go search up. Realistically, probably a big Eldrazi in the face of an Emrakul.
Yeah, Emrakul is really strong. I mean, you could even try and set up to play Emrakul and then combo kill Bill if you wanted to hold your Stone Brain. This World Breaker comes down, it exiles the Urza Saga, right? Down there's a 5/7 on the board. The Karn's going to tick up on the Amber as it's its only real target. And, Bill's left with a couple cards in hand. We know they're not even close to good enough.
At the minute, Emrakul would cost 9.
And,
Oh,
Adam
no,
has.
sorry, we've got 9 mana. Sorry, is what I'm getting at. Sorry.
Sure.
We're
We
yeah.
have. Okay.
We can put the Crypt in the Graveyard, which would be an extra one. So that's potentially another mana itself.
I don't understand.
Maybe it's not. Maybe we go for the Sorin here.
Yeah, I mean, the Sonic Microspawn's fine. You could also just grab another World Breaker, right? Just draw 5/7. What are you gonna do? Here's a great question: how does Bill win the game from here? Urza Saga, Underworld Breach are the 2 ways that you can win, right? We have the breach named, so if we take the Sowing Microspawn, we can have this be an answer to Saga on the following turn, as long as we get the turn to Stonebrain, which is so likely to have happened here because the Karn will answer the Mox. The Karn needs to be answered. The Karn is blocked by the World Breaker. And then Bill has to do all that and have the Breach combo, which is not impossible, but very close to it.
Karn's going to tick up. It's going to deal with that Mox. That means it's going to go to the graveyard because it becomes a 0/0 powered and toughness creature. Looking at the deck, it looks like Chris Ward's able to take down game one against May, and it looks like Bill is going to scoop this one up as well. Can't deal with all that ramp on the other side for Eldrazi. So let's have a little look into Legacy and how this is getting on. Is it Delver versus Dimir Tempo? Not a lot of lands going on here. Maybe a few wastelands have been involved. Talk me through this Dimir Tempo deck. I don't even know if I've actually seen this one before.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things about Legacy is like there's a lot of different things that can be happening. I mean, this deck is playing Kaito from Standard. So if you've seen, that card before, just how powerful it can be when it gets running away with the game. And that's like a really interesting sort of thing to happen. And this is one of the new innovations thanks to a card like Kaito, like Tamiyo. You play like Baleful Strix, Orcish Bowmaster, Tamiyo, Brazen Borrower, play a couple Kaitos, and then just a lot of the interaction cards, Fatal Push, Force of Will, Daze, just very much like another version of Delver that isn't reliant on something like Death Shadow, which we've seen be sort of the blue-black version de jour before in Legacy.
Well, we've definitely got a mana advantage on the left here. And here comes I'd say the biggest creature in the deck by quite a margin in Murktide Regent. We're going to exile a bunch of cards for Delve. So it's not only reduced in cost, but also how big do we want this to be? 14 life, realistically, you're trying to get an extra 4 counters on there. So it's going to be a 2-turn clock. And we're going full big. I think we're turning it straight into an 8/8.
Yeah, I think this makes sense too. Because remember, we just talked to Ashlyn last round. She's back. I guarantee you she has probably not played this matchup before.
Yeah.
And so she might be a little worried about a card like Murktide Regent from the other side, right? Like if you're thinking you haven't played in a while, it's like, well, that's like a really big creature. Like, yeah, you have all these synergies, but you might just play some of those. And imagine you don't delve because you're trying to get cute with it because you only need 7, and your opponent makes an 8/8 Murktide, right? There's such a huge graveyard here for Ashlyn. There's very little downside into going all in on this.
Well, on the other side of the card, don't think we've seen this one in a while, especially with Orcish Bowmasters floating around. It is a Baleful Strix. So the 1/1 flying Death Toucher that draws a card when it enters. There it is on the screen for everybody at home. Maybe you haven't seen this one in a little while. Used to be see a lot more play, let's say. I wouldn't say a complete staple, but you used to see a lot more play.
Yep. And you see Dan here picked up one of the 2 Murktides like we talked about. Obviously, we needed the land for that. It could have been in hand before for Ashlyn, but this Baleful Strix picked it up, and she's going to be very happy to have this huge Murktide. Also worth mentioning, which we didn't talk much about, we're using Mystic Sanctuary here. If nothing had happened, Ash might have left it on, just drawn a card and then tried to grow the Murktide to have lethal here. But that Unholy Heat answering there, and she's in top deck mode now. No agency over what's coming, but Dan with a hand still full of cards to see if he can get out from underneath this Murktide region.
There's definitely, I think there's double Brazen Borrow in hand. So we do have a option to bounce the Murktide. So that would be able to deal with it, at least for a turn. Yes, it would come down the following turn, but that graveyard can only get so big. If they keep eating up enough spells or sorceries in that graveyard, maybe they won't be able to get a big enough Murktide in a turn or two. Definitely feel like mana is going to be the issue here moving forward as... Oh, I have no idea what that card was. Was that Kaito family end? But we're going to do the Brazen Borrow line. We have to survive before we can even think about winning the game here.
Yep. And this might be what it looks like for the next couple of turns here for Dan, just bouncing this Murktide over and over again. Now, Dan's deck does play Go for the Throat in the main, so we actually do have one hard answer. And, we can also maybe like bounce plus counterspell. So Dan has a couple ways to get through this Murktide, but it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world.
Let's see how we go. We do have access to Daze, not exactly what we want to be doing right now, especially with all this extra mana that we've got floating around. I do see an Orcish Bowmaster in the hand as well as that Murktide Regent. I think Strix is the other card chat's telling me, so cheers, chat. Here comes the Dragon's Channel, which is a great 1 mana threat, especially when you've got 1 mana left open and make this Daze completely useless. There's the fetch. Now, can we turn this into a dub?
So the nice thing here is it looks like Ash left Delirium in her graveyard.
Mhm.
If you bounce the Murktide again, which you probably have to given the hand here, now you could maybe play your own Murktide and then hope to, eat Ashes in combat, not die to the DRC and work from there. But if you do end up bouncing the Murktide again, it might actually shrink the DRC. I think I like the line of just play my own Murktide. I assume there's enough instants and sorceries in the graveyard. We came midway through, so I'm not sure how many were actually, drawn and played this game.
Yeah, there's a bit of a stacks graveyard still. I'm agreeing with you here. I feel like if I can get my one down, it makes combat really rough here for Ash. Like, do you want to sacrifice one of your creatures in combat to get a little bit of chip damage in? Yes, it would get down within bolt range, so that gives you an extra out as well. Dan's having a look at that graveyard though. Pits 5 spells to one side, and is going to do it. So I'm being told that Modern is ready. Let's just stay here for just a little bit longer, see how this pans out, see what the top deck is going to be here for Ash.
Yes, I mean, this is a very interesting spot. Ash needs a good draw here. The DRC has to attack it for Delirium, which I believe we are delirious. And then the Murktide will get eaten. Dan will fall to 2. And then it's a matter of can Dan get back in this game. Now, second Murktide would get there. You delve enough.
Getting that block there. Take 3.
And
Wasteland.
All right.
So we are in lightning bolt range. We are only, you're allowed to use one more fetch line basically over on Dan's side. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's no life gain in this deck.
Wise beyond your years.
That's maybe we should swap roles. Maybe I'll go expert role for insight, intelligence like that. The Demir deck doesn't have a life gain element to it.
Yeah, at least on the main. We'll have to check the sideboard. But yeah, you see Dan's flick this Baleful Strix to the front of his hand, trying to figure out what we can do here.
Hunter, is there any crazy lines where we can win here? Remember, any cards we exile from our own graveyard would grow our own Murktide. It is 8 power. If we can exile 2 more cards, that would make it 10 power and a lethal threat.
I think that is what Dan's thinking as well. So we're going to grab the Undercity Sewer and try and find something. I think, Dan, I mean, also worth noting, by going down to 1, you can't force a will, right? I think that was maybe a big part of what Dan was thinking about too, was like, okay, do I need to top deck a force? Because if I do, this Murktide will eat the DRC in combat. I'll force the top deck and just hope that Ash draws something that doesn't matter in the next draw step. As we see Dan taking a look at Ash's graveyard, seeing, okay, you've worked through this, you've worked through that. All right, how many bolts have you seen? What am I supposed to play around? Let's take a little surveil action. Couldn't quite make that card out.
Might be a force.
Force, very awkward here. You don't have the life. There's no Barrogoyfs in the main deck of this one here.
The fact that they're tanking makes me think maybe it's not a force in this instance, because with 1 life, nowhere near enough mana to hard cast it. No other spells in their hand that require a blue card to ditch it.
Yeah. That's
Just
a wasteland.
Is it a wasteland? Okay.
Yep.
Not ideal here. A lot better for us though is getting another C. That costs 0 life to be able to add another mana. Now, do we get in and bounce, right?
Yeah, as I say, I think Dan's getting in, and we're just going to see the main face bounce, which will force the chump block from Ashland and give you a chance to get the kill spell. Oh, and you're seeing Dan cancel the line, maybe is wanting to wait later. No real advantage to waiting outside of.
I'd be bouncing now. And I've got a Bowmaster. Oof, okay.
Okay, maybe a potential bit of missequencing here, not doing this first. We picked up Go for the Throat. All right.
Okay, Lightning Bolt off the top.
Lightning Bolt will be huge. All the redraws are huge. The more looks at Lightning Bolt, and
no,
Ash is picking it up. Oh my goodness.
Right. That was a close. Tight one.
Yeah,
it really looked like Ash was in a controlling position, but able to get there down that big Murktide, the line you spoke about, just getting that on the battlefield, outgrowing the other one, making it so it's awkward, because of course we knew that the Dragon Nation had to attack, so the combat math was going to be a bit awkward there. Able to take it down. Let's move back to Modern here, where we've still got the Grinding Breach Station going up against Eldrazi Ramp. Eldrazi Ramp is 1 game up, and it looks like we're going to turn number 3 right now.
Yeah, it looks like we've had a bit of a slower game. It looks like Emery got played, maybe got answered there. And then now Bajuka Bog's going to clean up the graveyard. So, hey, we didn't miss much. We're coming into the game with, some lands in play.
I do like that we're seeing a lot more Bajuka Bogs floating around in this format at the minute. Everyone's coming with Grinding Breaches, got targets on their back. We're all fully aware what this deck can do. We know how powerful it can be. And just being able to have like a tutorable way to exile a graveyard, as well as, of course, having Khans, etc. I think it's a really cool way that people are going about attacking this meta that we're currently in.
Definitely. And we're seeing Bill here, with kind of a much slower approach to this game.
I think we're going about the Utopia Spool on the stack. Do we want to presage you the land that it is targeting so that it gets fizzled?
That makes a decent amount of sense. Looks like there's also someone to name Cavern. To get a Boseiju on Cavern due to the consign in hand, just to make sure the actual body part of the Eldrazi gets countered as well. That is, not always the most important part, but typically is pretty huge. Like we saw last game, right? If Worldbreaker had just blown up the land and not been around, will have been a very different game. So Bill just wanting to fight over that, and it's okay with Adam sort of being up a mana in exchange to maybe have, consigns be a real quote-unquote card in this game.
So we're going to go find ourselves and probably a Surveil land. Or no, we're going to get a shotgun and get the red mana. What is the red mana for in this deck? It is for the...
Cosmic's Return. That's the big one. That's how you stomp on all those energy decks. You like cats? No, you don't.
I haven't, you doing the coverage yesterday, which was modern. Did you see much energy floating around? Is it, it feels like it's definitely on a decline.
There's a decent amount of energy. It did well. They had 2 players in the top 4 play energy. Now they lost to Breach and Eldrazi, but energy is still very popular, still very good. It is definitely a deck you can't sleep on.
I'm going to throw it out there. I feel like, and this is hard for me to say, I feel like I'm in that point of my Magic career now in Modern where I actually might have to start buying some Ugin Labyrinths. Like, that really hurts to say it out loud, but I think I might be in that sort of territory in Modern now where I'm like, maybe I need to actually start picking up this Eldrazi deck, because every time I see it, it does look like it's performing extremely well. Plus, I get to cast Emrakul's.
Yeah, I love Emrakul, the Promised End. I don't know if you noticed, it's behind me here.
I see it. I see it.
Yeah,
I like it. Eldritch Moon. What's that? What's that?
What? Oh, Eldritch Moon. Eldritch Moon, and then this one is... Well, it's Eldritch Moon, and then Shadows over Innistrad is the prelude set to it. Excuse me.
I enjoyed that. That was all the Emerge Eldrazi's and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right after Battlefield Zendikar. Whoa, Emrakul got away. What could all these spaghetti things be on Innistrad? Hee.
Right. Anyway, back to the match. I think we drew a Khan for the turn. We have access to 4 mana. We know how well that went game number 1, but there is 1 blue mana up on the other side. And of course, this is a post-cyborg game. And we know at home, because we can see the hands, that there is a consigned to memory in that, which would be a nice, clean, cheap, easy answer to that Khan if it was to be cast.
And I think Adam knows too, right? Bill was deliberating over, like, what do I get, the 2 mana or the can't be countered land? It doesn't take a lot to think about what counter spell would Bill bring in against me. If you play Eldrazi, Consigned to Memory is a card you are, very much aware of.
Looks like we're going to go for 6, and we're going to try and get some trigger arrows anyway. We're going to counter both of those triggers, not only the creature, but the trigger to go 2 up a land effect with that consign, and the Eldrazi Spawn token, which is the 2nd mana we need for that. So now completely tapped out. How can we turn this with another Breach off the top?
That should be... This is an incorrect game state. We only had 2 mana, so we can't stop the search, the blow up, and the creature.
Well, it was only was it 6 mana? Yeah, it was only 6 mana.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Summoning Microspawn cost 6, and there's only 2 mana for the consign because it was tapped out.
It wasn't kicked though, right?
It was kicked. There's 6 mana tapped from Adam.
Oh yeah. Yeah, maybe we should.
We should get a judge over there. Maybe there's another spawn underneath that spawn token. That's something that could maybe have happened. We joined this game midway through, but Bill can't counter 3 things with 2. It's hard math to do for sure. I know I've been there before, and it's a very easy mistake to make. Right? You're so used to consign stopping everything, and I believe it's different modes on the kicker. I might be mistaken. Maybe the kicker, joins it.
Well, let's have a look at Legacy while they kind of sort this one out, because it looks like Standard is over. I'm going to say Villain. didn't win that one. May was not able to take it down, going up against the Dimir control deck over on Chris Ward's side. So we're going to pop back into Legacy. Is it Delver? Dimir Tempo 1 game up. It came down to that sort of top decking battle, and Dan was able to get there.
I would call this Dimir mid-range, but maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Kaito is a tempo card. I don't know. When your deck has Go for the Throat main, yeah, you know what? It's tempo-y enough. Well, I'll allow it. I've been thinking about it a bit more. But you know what? Oh, Will, we didn't get to see the sideboarding, but I bet you Bargoyf joined the team. A little lifelink.
I'm actually looking at this deck because I'm in the market for a Legacy deck for a tournament I've got coming up in the future, and I'm looking at these cards. I'm like, I own a lot of these cards. I could definitely look at playing this in my Legacy tournament coming up in the future.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like this deck is actually not that expensive outside of the duels.
The usual, yeah.
Yeah. Like, but if you have the duels, it's a very affordable Legacy deck. And I think it's pretty great looking so far. So I'm definitely interested. I sadly own the Bant duels, which maybe not sadly. Those are the colors I kind of like to play with. That and Gaia's Cradle, rest in peace elves. And so I've been doing some not doing.
Oof. Look at this. Turn 2. We're going to see a Murktide Regent come down here. Not going to be the biggest one ever, but 5. That is a 4-turn clock to get this done. Hydroblast off the top here for Dan. And just has to pass the turn back.
I guess it's not really a one-later. We got Wastelanded a bunch, right? Ash does it again.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, Ash is really not wanting Dan to play Magic. Like you're talking about the villain May French. We need Ash to win if we don't want her to get, harassed, as it seems to me. Didn't do well.
I wonder if the tables turn now and they would harass May.
Like, I don't believe you. Hopefully so. Hopefully.
Getting in there. Still no land off the top. We're gonna have to move to discard.
Game 3. We're going to discard.
Well, we say game 3. I'm gonna, I'm waiting for production. So that's how that judge call goes. And if that game starts, we'll probably move straight back to mod and see how that's gonna pan out.
Mean, we have a little window into the feature match area. I can see our head judge is talking to those players and they're figuring it all out. This once again might be a mistake on my part with how the effect works with kicking it. I believe that is not the case, but we'll see. Brainstorm, that's a strong card.
Facts. Tune in next week for more Mason Clark insight.
Yeah.
Brainstorm, good card. Not good when it doesn't resolve. Picks the cards up. Okay, cool. They're going to go to sideboarding for game number 3. Judge call is still happening over on the modern side, so that means it's probably a really good time for us to tell you about the future NRG events that we've got coming up. If you want to take part and potentially get yourself in a feature match, well, Mason, when's the next time that they can come to an NRG event?
On screen for you right here, Madison, Wisconsin, March 15th to the 16th. We're doing standard on Saturday, 10K showdown. Win one of those. We'll see you at Champs at the end of the year. Sunday, 5K Pioneer Trial. Trial, for what it's worth, is just the vernacular for not showdown. I've had some questions about that in Twitch chat, so I wanted to answer that really quickly. But listen, I've said it a lot. This is my last time in the booth. Last time you're going to hear it, at least from me. I like Pioneer. I've grown to appreciate it. I think it's maybe the best way to describe it. It's not my favorite format, not my least favorite format. So I'm really excited to see that we're doing at least one 5K Pioneer thing here in the first half of the year. It's a format that I know a lot of you really love, you really appreciate. You kind of like it as maybe a safe haven, that isn't affected by the Horizon sets. I know that's how some people feel about it. And some people like the bigger formats and not the smaller card pool of standard. So, hey, if that's your jam, consider making it out here to Madison, Wisconsin, the 15th and 16th. We'd love to have you. You can have a great time battling it out. And I can't wait to commentate those rounds and see what Pioneer looks like post Aether Drift. There's a lot of conversation about Aether Drift for modern and standard because those are the main formats we're kind of playing this year when it comes to competitive Magic. So if you have a lot of good work done and some innovation, that could be groundbreaking in Pioneer. I mean, we're seeing, some of the first affinity cards hit the Pioneer card pool here with the release of Aether Drift. So I'm really excited to see what players do with all of that.
I think our modern match might be restarting. I've seen the judges have moved away.
So, yeah, I don't know if they're, but I still see them in the background talking, right? So are they doing the little judge thing where they talk about how that went? Or are they, double checking something away from the table?
The fact that we haven't moved down to the game makes me think the production's like, no. They're still talking. They're still trying to sort it out. So
also, we have, our player of the year, Garrick, here on screen. So that's always good to look at. Look at Nikachu here. Won the first MH3 showdown. And we made our way to Champs. And here's that picture with that trophy. But you can go to Chicagoland. That's where we are this weekend. We'll be back there on May 10th and 11th for the Modern 10K showdown on Saturday. And then Sunday, a 5K standard trial. I think this will be right before the release of Final Fantasy.
Looking
So
forward
get
to that
excited
set.
for that. So this might be your last chance to play the standard deck that you love from Aether Drift that's coming out. We'd love to see you there.
I want chat. Help me out here. It might just be a me thing, but I'm across the pond. I'm in Europe. To me, Chicagoland sounds like a theme park. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Chicagoland this weekend. And I'm like, oh cool, it's got a theme park. Like no, it's an actual place. It's where we hold NRG events. I can't be the only one that thinks that. Chat. Someone help me out on this one. But modern showdown, love to see it. Showdowns, they're the ones. If you win it, you also get a custom token. Correct?
Yeah, that is one of the big perks of the showdown. We saw Theo win 2 events last year, one for our champ, one for the showdown. And got an energy and then a cat token of him and his cat, which is pretty funny. It's the Ocelot Pride one, and they made the cat look like Bone Crusher Giant stomping on Theo.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's pretty sick to see. We're off to the races here, though. Back into our legacy game, while the modern one's still kind of being sorted out. We're going to see a Tameo. Nice to see that one appearing in legacy as well. And here's a replacement copy because the first one got dealt with that red elemental blast. Is that one? Pyroblast, one of the two. A red 1-mana spell to be able to deal with it. Now, how can Ash kind of rebuild? We saw turn 2 Murktide came down in the last game. Don't think we're going to see it here, especially because the graveyard is looking pretty small.
Definitely. And I think Ash is discussing the play here with May, trying to make sure we don't drop this. We need to win both if we want to sort of lock things up for that top 8. May
Do you
French
think
would
that?
love to come back to our champs.
Do you think May's discussing it? Or do you think May's just giving a bit of stick there, be like, oh my god, what are you doing? You definitely should play that card, except which you
No,
know,
because here's the problem. If May talks too much, then she might make a mistake, and then Ashlyn could make fun of her. So it's important to let her play, and then you critique her. No, jokes aside, I think they are just discussing things together. May and Ash, they're having a little fun in our interview before. But typically in these sort of situations, you normally actually just kind of want to let your seat player play the seat because they're normally the expert in the format. And Ashlyn has played a ton of Legacy in the past, but like she mentioned in her interview, hasn't played in the last year. So, some of these cards are brand new to Ash or brand new in the context of this matchup, at least, right? Like Ash probably knows Tameo, probably not used to playing against Tameo plus Brainstorm interaction. That's a big difference.
and there's a lot on the line. Remember, both teams 4-0, 7 rounds of action, which probably means if you can lock this round up, your team is in the contention of just double IDing, getting themselves into today's top 8, which means they can battle out, of course, for all those points and the big cash prizes that we have on the line this weekend. Brainstorm is going to resolve. We're going to shuffle away those dead cards that we didn't really want. Go get ourselves another land. Could be a Seville, could be a basic, could just be another volcanic island, as we see here. Okay, I'm being told from our table, it looks like the spawn. Put that back on the screen for me, please, production. I think they're able to go search for land. Count has searched for land. Spawn was counted. He's searching for land. Okay, so they're able to go get that third ability that you said. So they stopped the stone rain effect. They stopped the creature effect, but they weren't able to stop the. What's the name of the card to two up a land for yourself to put it into play? Is there a card that does that?
Well, yeah, there's like crop rotation.
All right.
There's like a bunch
Oh,
of things that can like tutor lands. That card is a homage to Reap and Sow, which is you search a land, your opponent loses a land. So the Reap part of it, I believe.
all right, we'll go with that. I think that might have been a bit before my time, or maybe I just don't know that card and I forgot
I only know
it.
that because I worked on the set. It doesn't actually look like Reap and Sow anymore. The card used to have Entwine. So originally, you could pick which mode you wanted to do on Microspawn. You could either blow up the land or search your deck. But I just literally complained about my lands getting burned up by Brad Nelson on turn 2 so much. I was like, this is not fun. We cannot do this. And this is also very strong.
Well, here's a Thoughtseize. We're going to have a little look at the hand. 1 mana up, of course, trying to play around Daze, and we do see a Daze in the hand, as well as a Wasteland, another Volcanic, a Delver, and a Brazen Burrow. What do you think the pick is going to be?
It's really interesting here. So the first thing I would try and think about is what could be on top of the deck, right? From sort of the surveilling and everything like that, and kind of how the game's been going. Like, what are the cards I'm trying to think about that could come down here and take things over? Because right here, I have the Fatal Push in my hand, so I know I've got this DRC covered. I could take the Delver, Fatal Push the DRC, and then it's just Brazen Borrower. All right, and then I have the Baleful Strix for that one, so that's kind of nice. Now maybe I want to take the borrower and leave the delver, and that sort of solves all the threats? Or do I want to take this daze that's sort of being a thorn in my side? I think given the amount of lands Dan has in hand, daze isn't something that I'd be personally really interested in. Maybe if I had a brainstorm and I was going to flip my Tameo right away, I could see taking daze. I imagine this is a spot where Brazen Borrower just being the most flexible of all the cards will be taken, and Dan seems to agree, with the Fatal Push in hand here to sort of take care of this DRC and play through the days.
Nice clean turn there. And then just to finish it all off, you get to attack with your Tameo. Make a clue token. And of course, Tameo is so easy to flip into the Planeswalker side, especially in Legacy when we've got access to, Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm. I mean, this is a card that just was not balanced with Brainstorm in mind, right? Like if Brainstorm was a big part of Modern, maybe this card would be different, right? But it's not a card there, so Tameo really gets to kind of run away with things here, and that's one of the cool things is we're gonna see Murktide come on down. That's a hard one to kill. Dan has a Baleful Strix, but Ash has something to say about that typically. So we're in ourselves for kind of a very interesting game. I'm glad we got to see this one from start to finish.
Let's go. So big top deck needed, something that's good at interacting. Another Strix. It's double Strix could be pretty good. We know about that daze though, so we do have to play around it.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of ways Dan kind of wants to play around it anyways, right? Play the first Strix. Maybe Ashland offers the Delver trade. You take the trade depending on kind of what you draw. Oh, Thoughtseize. Yeah, big draw there. But I was gonna say, yeah, like maybe she takes the trade or whatever, or fights over this Baleful Strix, and then you have the second one to sort of lock it up. Because your life total is high enough as Dan right now to not be in too much trouble, especially with the Tameo can always jump under the bus as well.
And if we do, the days was in hand, we could just play the other Strix here, and of course draw the third card for the turn, flick.
Yeah, we can just pop the clue though too. I think we're going to see Dan attack, create a clue, and then pop in the middle of combat. And then that will give us a flip Tameo. We can tick up, it's all open information here. Both players know all the cards.
Basically, do we want to use the rest of our turn to get that daze out of hand, or do we want to do, as you said here, attack, generate the clue before combat damage is going to happen? We're going to crack the clue, draw a card. That's going to flip the Tameo because it's the third card drawn for the turn. Now,
yeah, and I think I like this play a lot more. Listen, every land we draw basically counters the daze to an extent, right? We're sort of just playing down a land. Now, multiple dazes, sometimes you get got, but also if Ash has a lot of cards in hand, Dan can always lead on the Thoughtseize to answer it. So I like this here from Dan, sort of force the initiative, make Ash have to flip this Delver, where this Tameo is going to most likely be pretty safe because a lot of the draws that don't flip Delver also mean you're not clearing the Baleful Strix, which means the Murktide's not connecting.
There's the flip side of Tameo. Of course, we're going to take it up straight away. So tagging creatures will get -1 or -0. That's the unknown card we didn't know about. Now we're going to play it. Dragon Age Channel on the battlefield. No attacks into the face of course, that Death Touch flyer. Ooh, there's the Borgoyf. That's like what, the 17th Goyf we've seen now so far in this coverage. But I'll take it.
So many Goyfs. But yeah, we're seeing here too, Ash has no cards in graveyard. This Tameo plus is very huge. And Dan sort of has a ton of resources to work with here. Can ponder, try to figure things out, can lead on a Baleful Strix, see a card, see what we want to do from there. Maybe even leave up our mana, leave up the clue. Has go for the throws and out to this Murktide, can then pick that up. Has access to all the cards in the graveyard. Yeah, it looks like Dan wants to just get this Fatal Push.
Which one are we going after here? Dragon Age Channel. I suppose that makes sense because future surveils and we can see things like this. This is going to force the days out of hand more, I believe, to get the surveil 1 because we need to find something. We need to find it quickly to be able to not fall too far behind in this. Dan will pay the extra 1, so Fatal Push will resolve and put that Dragon Age Channel in the graveyard. Follow up is going to be another Strix. That's going to draw us a land.
Little delta from MH3 there. And yeah, I mean, listen, Ash has a clean draw. We got rid of that land, which, Ash decided to use the days to sort of try and flip the Delver. I think that makes a lot of sense. Dan's clearly playing with the days in mind. You could try to hamstring the mana, but I think it's just not likely to really get anywhere quickly. So really heads up play of like, hey, I need to flip this Delver and push. And this is all before the second Strix hit the battlefield. So.
And then we're going to end our turn on a ponder. Top 3, put them back in any order, draw a card, have the ability to shuffle if we don't like any of them. It turns out we do. That is Nice little go for. I think that's the
Warhammer.
Yeah, the Warhammer one. I was telling you before this. I've got into my Warhammer recently.
Yeah.
Here comes the flip. Here's the Stifle. Stifle might be one of my favorite cards in Legacy. Like when I play Legacy, I want to play Stifles, I want to play Wastelands, I want to play Uros, I want to play River Balloon Commands. Like that's my style of playing Legacy. I really enjoy just making sure my opponent can't really interact with their game plan. As here comes the go for the throat.
Into the Burrogoyf.
Boom, Burrogoyf. Impacted.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen much Legacy, you might be like, why isn't Ash playing this Wasteland going after the land? One, there's a lot of lands here for Dan. Even though Dan used all the mana that turn, it's not going to be hugely impactful like as in the other games. And Brainstorm matters a lot. And we're going to see Ash just concede. She's too far behind, picks up a Force of Will, but the current board state is just too big to take advantage of. So congratulations to the team of Chris, Dan, and Adam. Looks like we're going to maybe see if these players like to finish their match for the sake of playing, and we'll commentate that right here. But
why not? You know what I mean? You got like 6 minutes left of the round. Get your camera time. You know, both your friends have finished, so you're the only one that's going to be on the camera right now. And we're going through a couple of different lines. What's happening in this one? Emrakul has come down. I believe this is probably the turn it's being cast. So Adam will get to basically use Bill's turn and try and do some damage, should we say?
I think we just saw the end of Adam taking Bill's turn.
Oh, okay.
That was why we did a bunch of sacrificing the stuff with the station and targeting Adam. I think that was sort of the idea. Now this Jace on 7 loyalty, we are dangerously close to potentially ultimating.
I'm about to try and find the ultimate. I don't even know.
It's draw 7 cards. If there are no cards left in your deck, win the game. Yeah, we're going to see a little deck count here. Oh, so Bill kind of knows it's more than 7. Starting to get the feel for it. I'm interested, how much more than 7 is it? Like, could we fetch Surveil, get there exactly? Also, worth noting, you might just be able to make some weird stuff come together with a plus on the Jace. All right, it looks like there's no breaches left in the deck, but there is a Shifting Woodlands. I don't know if there are any left in the yard. They might have got Stone Brained this game.
Do you see Stone Brain at the bottom left or bottom right of our screen, just off there on some sort of one of the old pro player tokens?
Yeah, I wonder, is that our sideboard or is that part of the graveyard that's just, or it's part of the exile, excuse me. All right, so looks like Jay's is going to
tick up, mill, and then draw. Hey, why am I? Did we forget to draw there?
No. Well, we did. We just... Emery.
Okay. A bit more milling. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. So it's worth remembering that Bill cannot Woodlands a Jace because Jace will die to state-based action. So it's not like that's the case. Yeah, you're going to see Bill actually scoop it up to the Emrakul.
We are seeing the team of Chris, Adam, and Dan taking it down a nice clean sweep, winning all their games and advancing themselves to a 5-0 record, which, if you do the math, is pretty much a lock to get in today's top 8. So congratulations to them. But Mason, that's the end of round number 5, which means that is the end of me and you on this broadcast today, my friend. It's been a pleasure as always. Any last words to the beautiful people out there on Twitch land and YouTube?
Hey, make sure to keep following the channel and watch the rest of today. We got a lot more Magic coming to you. Make sure that pay attention, and maybe Madison's something you want to do with the upcoming events. We'll see you there, and make sure to always keep supporting Paper Magic. It's one of the most fun things in the world. I'm glad we're able to help bring this to you all at your homes. And have a great weekend.
I feel so inspired and inspiration, but and that one from me, from Mason. We'll see you next time. Keep watching the rest of the Magic. We're going to be up with Corbin and Drake are going to be taking over. So have a good evening.